Hey there, seventh graders. How you doing? This is Mr. Garnett Cook. I'm going to be creating two screencasts today. This first one is going to be a preview of the two early Greek civilizations you're going to be learning more about this week, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans. Last week, the focus was on geography and Greek founding narratives, specifically Homer's epics. This week, you'll be learning a little bit more about the people who some believe Homer's epics were based on, and more specifically, the Mycenaeans. Well, but we'll be learning about both of these early Greek civilizations this week, and I want to do a quick introduction to them for you right now. And I want to begin with this slide. This is a bunch of images, and what this is an image of, and particularly the one up here on the left, is the Uluburun shipwreck. This is a ship that was found off the coast of Turkey. You can see it on the map right here. That dates to about, I believe, 1400 BCE or so. It's one of the oldest known shipwrecks in the world. In this image here, you see some of the cargo that was found on the ship. It was found in 1982. And the significance of the Uluburun shipwreck is the fact that the cargo that was found on the ship really spans the entire Eastern Mediterranean world, including the early Greek civilizations. They found Egyptian stuff on there. They found stuff on this ship connected to this people known as the Hittites, who lived in what is modern day Turkey. So they found stuff on this ship from all over the Eastern Mediterranean world. And what this tells us is that there were extensive trade networks that really span the entire Eastern Mediterranean. You should remember from learning about the geography that because Greece was not a river valley civilization, they really relied heavily on trade for their survival. And that goes all the way back to the early Greeks. Here's another map that shows this trade network that the Uluburun shipwreck was apparently a part of. And it was this trade network that really enabled the early Greek civilizations to flourish. That's a really important point to understand right off the bat. The Minoans and Mycenaeans had some things in common, also some things that made them different. I want to talk briefly about the Minoans first. And the Minoans were the earliest of the Greek people. They were based entirely on the island of Crete. You see, Crete is represented here and on this larger map here below. The main archaeological site on Crete that's connected to the Minoans is the palace at Knossos. The Minoans were a monarchy, which means they had a single ruler, a king. And it's at Knossos where most, if not all, of the Minoan artifacts that are still around today were found. And it gives you some insight into a lot of things about Minoan culture, including their wealth, which at a certain point was quite extensive. The Minoans disappeared from the historical record around 1500 to 1400 BCE. And I'll get into in just a minute why some people think that happened. The Mycenaeans came a little bit later. They at one point overlapped with the Minoans for a couple hundred years, actually. The Mycenaeans and Minoans were around simultaneously. But the Mycenaeans eventually overran the island of Crete, and I'll come back to that also in a couple of minutes. Mycenaeans were centered on what was known as the Peloponnesus, which is this chunk of land here on the map, where the city of Sparta would eventually be located. The main archaeological site connected to the Mycenaeans is the palace at Mycenae. So the Mycenaeans were also a monarchy, which means they had kings. And what you see in this map here on the bottom is really the trading network, the extent of the Mycenaean kingdom. The Mycenaeans at one point controlled a lot of territory, mainland Greece, in the Aegean, in the Sea of Crete, all these islands here. So at one time, the Minoans had a vast and growing empire. But like the Minoans, the Mycenaeans disappeared. It's between 1200 and 1100 BCE. And unlike the Minoans, what happened to the Mycenaeans is more of a historical mystery. I'll get to that in just a minute. Let's talk about what happened to the Minoans first. So the Minoans disappear from the historical record 1500 to 1400 BCE. There's a generally accepted theory as to what happened. And it's a series of events that happen one after another over probably the course of around a century, maybe more. It starts with a volcanic eruption, and this is absolutely confirmed. Sometime around 1500 BCE, there was a volcano on an island called Santorini, which is in the Sea of Crete. It's north of the island. The volcano erupted, and it actually destroyed part of the island. And when that happened, it set off a major tsunami that swept south toward the northern coast of Crete. And you can see an artist's sort of rendering of what that tsunami would have looked like right here. But what most people believe happened was this tsunami just devastated the economy of Crete and really weakened the Minoan kingdom. The volcanic eruption would also touch off some climate change. This combination of things weakened the Minoans and made them vulnerable to an eventual Mycenaean invasion sometime around 1400 BCE. So that's a generally accepted theory, the most likely explanation for what happened to the Minoans. What happened to the Mycenaeans, however, is much more of a mystery, and to this day, nobody really knows for sure. I'm going to give you three of the theories and what, if any, evidence supports them. The first theory is that there was a group of people called the Dorians who invaded Greece from the north sometime around 1200 to 1100 BCE. And you can see on this map here that what you see here in red is the sort of invasion route of this group of people called the Dorians. The Dorians are referenced in early written works, including Homer. So there is a written tradition and an oral tradition probably connected to the story of the Dorian invasion. They've also found written records from the city of Pylos in Greece around this time that references preparation for an invasion that was coming. They don't say from whom, so it's still unclear if it was a Dorian invasion or, and this is theory number two, an invasion by a group of people known simply as the Sea People. The Sea People are a mysterious group of people. A lot of experts think that this was a hodgepodge of people from different parts of Eastern and Central Mediterranean world around this time, who became kind of a seafaring invasion force that rampaged across the Eastern Mediterranean around this time. There are references to the Sea People in Egypt. One of the late pharaohs of Egypt was credited with having repelled an invasion from a group of people that are referred to in Egyptian sources as the Sea People. So there is evidence to support the existence of these people. And one theory is that the Sea People conquered Greece and overthrew the Mycenaeans. Now, whether that happened or not, we don't know. There's very little evidence to support either one of these theories, other than some references in earlier written records. The third theory, and the one that is given the least amount of credibility actually, is that there was a major earthquake that basically reduced some of the cities in the Mycenaean kingdom to rubble. Now, there is evidence in other parts of the Eastern Mediterranean around this time period of a major earthquake. They have found some structures along the east coast of the Mediterranean that date to this time, where you see displacement of rock that seems consistent with a major earthquake. There was some very recent work done on the Peloponnesus and some of the ancient sites connected to the Mycenaeans, where they were trying to see if possibly an earthquake could have destroyed some of those structures. They don't think that it's true for the Mycenaeans, however. So the most likely explanation remains some sort of invasion from the outside, but nobody knows for sure. There's very little in the historical record to back this up. So it remains kind of a mystery to this day. So that's kind of a little bit of an introduction to the Minoans and the Mycenaeans. You'll be reading about them for one of the assignments this week. I'm going to create a separate screencast where I talk about the second assignment you're going to have this week, which is going to be examining an artifact. Until then, I'll say goodbye for now, and thanks a lot.